The alien queen asked one question about humans. My answer changed everything. It was a day unlike any other. The world had been waiting for this moment, ever since the first signal from the stars. For months, scientists, governments, and the entire population of Earth had been on edge, unsure of what the aliens wanted. Some feared an invasion, others speculated about trade or knowledge sharing. But the truth was, no one knew. That's why Eli Granger, a young human diplomat, was about to face a moment that would change the future of humanity forever. Eli was only in his late 20s, but his sharp mind and ability to stay calm under pressure had earned him a prestigious position as a diplomat in the United Earth government. He had been trained for situations like this, first contact with an alien species. But no training could have prepared him for the sight of the Kralian Empire's flagship descending from the sky. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering and sleek, it shimmered in the atmosphere, its surface smooth like polished obsidian. As it slowly landed on the grounds of the United Nations headquarters, a hush fell over the crowd. The alien vessel's enormous size cast a shadow over the entire city, and Eli felt a chill run through him as he watched the metal doors of the ship open. From within emerged the Kralian delegation, tall, elegant beings with glowing, translucent skin. Their eyes were bright and otherworldly, reflecting colors that Eli could not even begin to understand. They walked with grace, their movements almost like they were gliding rather than walking. And then there was the Queen, Queen Zalira, the leader of the Kralian Empire. Even in the midst of all the other aliens, her presence stood out. She was unlike any ruler Eli had ever seen, regal and powerful, yet calm and serene. Her beauty was beyond anything that could be described in human terms. She radiated an aura of authority and wisdom, and yet there was something gentle in the way she carried herself, as if she truly understood the weight of what was about to unfold. Eli had been chosen to meet her in person. It was an honor, and he knew it could also be the most dangerous moment in human history. The eyes of the world were on him as he stepped forward, walking toward the platform where Queen Zalira stood. He was nervous, but he couldn't show it. This was humanity's chance to prove itself to the galaxy. When he reached the Queen, he bowed respectfully, trying his best to remain composed. She nodded gracefully, acknowledging his presence without a word. The atmosphere between them was electric, thick with anticipation. There were many cameras focused on this moment, and Eli knew every word, every action would be analyzed by millions of people. Finally, Queen Zalira spoke, her voice soft but carrying a weight that seemed to echo in Eli's mind. "Human," she said, "what makes your species worthy of existing in this vast universe?" Eli froze. The question was simple, but its implications were immense. The entire fate of humanity hung on his answer. He had not prepared for something like this. He had expected questions about Earth's resources, its alliances, or even its military capabilities. But this was different. He looked into her glowing eyes, searching for any hint of what she wanted to hear. But they were unreadable, as if she had seen and understood things no human could imagine. "What makes us worthy?" Eli repeated, as if trying to buy himself some time. We are survivors," he began. "Humans have faced countless challenges throughout history, wars, natural disasters, and even the collapse of civilizations. Yet we always rise again. We have the strength to endure, the courage to change, and the hope that tomorrow will be better than today." He paused, trying to find the right words to express what he felt deep inside. But what makes us truly worthy is our compassion, our ability to love, to care for each other even when things are at their darkest. We protect the weak, the helpless, and the innocent. We fight not just for ourselves, but for others. Eli took a deep breath, sensing that he had said what he needed to say. He couldn't predict how the Queen would respond, but he knew that he had spoken from the heart. Queen Zalira remained silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on him. It felt as if she were weighing every word, every syllable. Eli held his breath, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Interesting," she said softly. "Your species is fascinating. But words alone are not enough to prove your worth. The true test lies in action." Eli's mind raced as he tried to process her words. He had answered her question, but it seemed that the queen wasn't satisfied with just an answer. She wanted more. And what was more, he realized, was that humanity's fate was no longer in their hands alone. The Kralian Empire was watching, waiting, and now Eli would be the one to determine if humanity was truly worthy of a place in the galaxy. With a small, almost imperceptible smile, Queen Zalira raised a hand. "You will come with me," she said. "You will prove humanity's worth through a trial, the trials of the Kralian Empire." Eli's stomach dropped. He had no idea what this trial would involve, but he knew it would not be easy. The eyes of the galaxy would be on him. The fate of humanity rested on his shoulders. As the queen gestured for him to follow, Eli took a step forward, his mind racing. Whatever this trial was, he would face it head-on. He had no choice. There was too much at stake. The journey to the Kralian flagship felt like a dream, an overwhelming, dizzying experience. Eli Granger sat in a sleek, metallic transport pod, hurtling through space at unimaginable speeds. Outside, the stars were streaks of light, a reminder of just how small Earth was in the vastness of the universe. Yet here he was, the chosen representative of humanity, about to face a test that would determine whether the human race deserved a place among the stars. The ship he was on was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was massive, a living creature more than a vessel, with walls that seemed to pulse with energy. The floors were smooth and glowing faintly, and the air hummed with a low, almost musical vibration. Eli felt like he was in a dream, but the reality of what lay ahead hit him every time he looked out the window, staring at the Kralian flagship looming ahead. When the pod finally docked, Eli was escorted by Kralian guards through long, winding corridors. The architecture of the ship was both alien and breathtaking. It was made from materials that seemed alive, with walls that shifted subtly as if the ship was breathing. There were no sharp edges, no corners. Everything was smooth and flowing, like the inside of a giant organism. The entire ship was bathed in a soft, otherworldly glow, with strange symbols etched into every surface. Eli couldn't help but feel a sense of awe, but at the same time, a deep unease settled in his chest. He was completely out of his element. What was the Queen planning? What did she mean by the trial of humanity? Was this some kind of test where failure meant death? The guards led him into a vast chamber, its walls taller than any building he had seen back on Earth. At the center of the room stood Queen Zalira, flanked by her advisors. Her presence filled the space, a silent power that made Eli feel small in comparison. But he didn't allow fear to show on his face. He had to be strong for Earth, for humanity. Queen Zalira's silver eyes met his, and for a moment Eli felt as though she was reading his thoughts. "Welcome, Eli Granger," she said, her voice calm, yet there was something dangerous in it, as though she was aware of the weight of this moment. "You are about to begin the trial, but before we proceed, you must understand what is at stake." Eli nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "I understand, Your Majesty. You say that humanity is worthy because of its ability to endure and its compassion," Queen Zalira continued, her voice echoing in the vast chamber. "But these are not enough to prove your species' value in the galaxy. Words are easily spoken. Actions, however, are what truly define a civilization." She motioned to one of her advisors, and a large screen flickered to life. On it, images of various planets, civilizations, and species flashed by. "The Kralians have been watching the galaxy for millennia," the Queen said. "We have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Some were wiped out by their own greed. others destroyed by their inability to cooperate with others. The test you will face will show whether humanity can be different. Eli watched in silence as the images on the screen showed the destruction of entire worlds, wars, betrayals, the extinction of entire species. Many believe that the universe is harsh and unforgiving, Queen Zalira continued. And they are right, but the true strength of a species lies in its ability to adapt and grow from its mistakes. The queen turned to face him fully, her silver eyes narrowing. Humanity has the potential for greatness, Eli Granger, but it also has the potential to be a great threat. That is why you will be tested. If you pass, the Kralians will grant you a place among the stars. If you fail, Earth will be left to its own devices. The galaxy will not come to its aid. Eli's mind raced. This wasn't just about surviving a few trials. This was about the future of his entire species. He had to prove that humanity was worth more than just a collection of flawed, chaotic beings. He had to show that humanity could rise above its imperfections and become something greater, something that could coexist with the rest of the galaxy. A sudden, sharp sound broke his thoughts. The room around him shifted, and the floor beneath him began to move. Eli's eyes widened as the entire chamber transformed before him. Walls vanished, and the ground shifted like liquid. A thick mist filled the air, and he found himself standing on a rocky surface, the sky above him dark and stormy. Queen Zalira's voice echoed around him, but there was no sign of her or her advisors. This is the first trial, Eli Granger. You will face an opponent, a Kralian warrior. The test is simple. Survive and you may move on. Fail and you will be sent back to Earth with no second chances. The mist cleared, revealing a massive creature before him. It was taller than any human, with rippling muscles and a face that seemed both alien and terrifying. Its eyes were red, glowing with a dangerous intensity. It was armed with a huge, jagged blade that seemed to hum with energy. Eli's heart raced. He wasn't a warrior, he was a diplomat. He had never fought anyone in his life, but he had no choice. The creature took a step toward him, its heavy footfalls shaking the ground. Eli instinctively backed away, his mind racing. What could he do? What would he use to survive? The warrior lunged at him with incredible speed, the blade slicing through the air toward him. Eli barely managed to dodge, his body reacting faster than his mind could process. He stumbled, nearly falling, but he managed to keep his footing. Sweat poured down his face as he looked around for any way to escape. There was no weapon, no exit. Just the rocky terrain and the warrior. The creature's eyes glowed brighter as it advanced again, swinging its blade in a wide arc. Eli ducked just in time, the weapon missing him by inches. He couldn't keep dodging forever. He needed to find a way to outsmart it. As the warrior raised its blade for another strike, Eli noticed something. There was a vulnerability in the creature's posture. The warrior's left side seemed exposed, and the blade was cumbersome, heavy. If he could get close enough, maybe he could disarm it. With a burst of energy, Eli rushed forward, using every ounce of his strength to get close to the creature. The warrior was momentarily surprised by his sudden move, and Eli took advantage of the opening. He grabbed the creature's arm, twisting it and forcing the blade to the ground. It wasn't a perfect move. Eli's grip was slippery, and the warrior fought back with terrifying strength. But Eli managed to wrestle the blade away, using the weapon against the creature in a desperate, chaotic series of moves. Finally, with a swift strike, he knocked the warrior to the ground. The creature was stunned, its glowing eyes dimming. Eli stood over it, breathing heavily, his heart still racing. He had won, but it didn't feel like victory. The warrior's pain was clear in its eyes, and Eli realized something important. This wasn't just about defeating an enemy. It was about understanding the struggles of others, recognizing their pain and choosing not to kill. As he stood there, looking down at the fallen warrior, Eli knew that the queen was watching. He had passed the first test, but there was more to come. And the true trial was just beginning. Eli stood in the midst of the rocky arena, his breath heavy, the adrenaline still rushing through his body. The defeated warrior lay at his feet, and though he had won, he could not help but feel a deep unease. What had he just done? He wasn't a fighter, but in that moment he had been forced to act. His mind struggled to reconcile the violence of the trial with the peaceful ideals he had been taught all his life. But there was no time to dwell on his thoughts. The floor beneath his feet began to shift again, and the air grew thick with the hum of energy. The ground trembled as a low voice echoed from above, causing Eli to look up. Queen Zalira's voice resonated from the walls of the arena, her tone cold but purposeful. "Well done, Eli Granger. You have survived the first trial, but this was only the beginning. The second trial will test your mind, your ability to think, and your judgment." Eli wiped the sweat from his brow, his heart still racing. He had no idea what to expect next. The air around him crackled, and the mist from the earlier trial began to swirl again, quickly enveloping the arena. It was then that the ground beneath his feet began to vanish. Eli stumbled but quickly regained his balance, his eyes darting around to understand what was happening. Suddenly, the mist cleared, and Eli found himself standing in a new place. This wasn't an arena or a battlefield. It was something else entirely. He was in a vast, empty space, a cold void that stretched infinitely in all directions. There were no stars, no planets, just endless nothingness. Eli's mind raced as he tried to make sense of his surroundings. In the distance, a faint light appeared. It flickered and then grew brighter, revealing a strange, transparent structure. It resembled a large tower, but it was unlike any structure he had ever seen before. The walls shimmered with strange symbols that seemed to shift as he looked at them, as if they were alive. He took a deep breath and began walking toward the tower, every step echoing in the silence. As he approached, the doors of the tower opened on their own, a soft hiss accompanying the movement. Inside, the structure was unlike anything Eli had imagined. The walls were lined with screens and holograms, and at the center of the room stood a console with a glowing orb. "Approach the console," a voice commanded. It was deep and unfamiliar, yet it carried the same coldness that had filled the arena moments ago. Eli obeyed, stepping forward and placing his hands on the console. The orb pulsed, and a series of images flashed before him, too fast for him to understand at first. The images were familiar scenes from Earth's history: wars, famines, destruction. But then they shifted, and Eli saw something else. He saw the Kralians, but not the peaceful, regal beings he had met. Instead, the images showed Kralians engaged in brutal conflict, destroying entire civilizations. Eli gasped, his heart racing as he watched the devastation unfold before him. "What is this?" he whispered. The voice from earlier answered. "This is the truth that lies behind the Kralians' empire. This is the cost of power. The choice you must make is simple. Will you help preserve a galaxy built on such violence, or will you choose to change the course of history? The future of your world and all the worlds that will follow depends on this decision." Eli felt a chill run down his spine. He had heard rumors about the Kralians, whispers that their empire was built on war and manipulation. But seeing it before his eyes, the cold, calculated destruction of entire species, was something else entirely. These weren't the benevolent beings he had hoped for. These were conquerors, and the truth was far more terrifying than anything he had imagined. The console flashed again, this time displaying an image of Earth, vulnerable and alone in the vastness of space. Eli could see his home, the planet he had fought so hard to represent, on the verge of destruction. The Kralians could destroy it with a single command. His mind raced as he processed the weight of this revelation. The voice spoke again, calm and steady. "The Kralians have the power to save or destroy your world. They have already chosen to test your worth. But now, you must choose. Will you aid them in maintaining the power structure that has shaped this galaxy for millennia? Or will you defy them and risk everything for a chance at something better? Eli's mind spun with conflicting thoughts. His first instinct was to protect humanity, to keep Earth safe from whatever the Kralians might have in mind. But the idea of becoming complicit in the violence that had shaped their empire left him sickened. He knew that the Kralians were not the only species that had suffered because of their hunger for power. He had seen it in their own history, and now he was being asked to choose a side. Choose wisely, the voice warned. The consequences of your decision will echo throughout the galaxy. Eli closed his eyes, trying to steady his thoughts. He couldn't betray humanity, not after everything he had seen and heard. He had to find another way. But what choice did he have? The Kralians were powerful and their empire was vast. If he defied them, could humanity survive? Taking a deep breath, Eli spoke with the only certainty he could muster. "I will not aid you in your wars," he said firmly, his voice steady. "I will not allow humanity to become part of your empire's blood-stained history. We will find another way, one where we build peace, not destruction." The console flickered and the orb dimmed for a moment. Eli's heart sank. Had he made the wrong choice? Was this the end? Then the voice returned, but this time there was a note of respect in it. "Your answer is unexpected, but it is not without merit. Perhaps there is more to humanity than we have seen. You have passed the second trial, Eli Granger. You have shown that you are willing to choose a path of peace, even in the face of overwhelming power. This is a strength we do not often see." The tower around him began to shift again, the walls pulsing with light as the void dissolved, replaced by the familiar sight of the Kralian flagship. Eli's knees nearly gave way as he realized that the trial was over, but the weight of the decision he had just made hung heavily on his shoulders. He had chosen peace, but what would it cost? And would the Kralians respect his decision, or would they see it as a weakness? As the mist around him cleared, Eli found himself standing in front of Queen Zalira once again. Her eyes met his, unreadable but not unkind. "You have passed the second trial," she said, her voice softer than before. "But the third and final trial awaits. Your true test is yet to come." Eli nodded, knowing that the path ahead would be even more difficult, but he had no choice. He had chosen a path of peace, and now he had to see it through, no matter the cost. The final trial was unlike anything Eli had experienced before. His mind still reeled from the choice he had made in the tower. It had been a test of moral strength, a test of his will to resist the easy path of compliance. But now, standing before Queen Zalira once again, Eli could feel the weight of his decision pressing down on him. The next trial would be the ultimate test, not just of his body or his mind, but of his very soul. Queen Zalira stood before him, her gaze steady and unwavering. "You have passed the first two trials, Eli Granger," she said, her voice carrying the same cold authority as before. "But now you must face the final test. It is not one of violence nor of intellect. It is a test of your heart." Eli didn't know what that meant. His heart had been tested in the first trial, where he had been forced to fight for his life, and in the second, where he had chosen peace despite the overwhelming power of the Kralians. But a test of his heart. What more could there be? The air around him grew heavier, and a strange, almost oppressive silence filled the room. Queen Zalira's expression softened just slightly, and for a brief moment, Eli saw something behind her eyes, something he hadn't noticed before. It was almost like a flicker of uncertainty, a glimmer of something other than the cold, calculating ruler he had first encountered. She spoke again, her voice softer now. "You will be shown a vision, Eli Granger, a vision of your world as it might be. A world shaped by the Kralians' influence. A world where peace, however fragile, is finally achieved. But it is a peace bought with the blood of others, a peace forged in the fires of destruction." The ground beneath him began to tremble as a large screen flickered to life, casting an eerie glow across the room. Images of Earth began to appear, first peaceful, serene landscapes, children playing in parks, families gathered at tables, soldiers returning home. But the images quickly darkened. A warship appeared in the sky, its massive silhouette blocking out the sun. People screamed as the ship unleashed a devastating wave of destruction on the planet below. Eli's heart raced as he watched. The images seemed so real, so vivid. He saw cities burning, forests reduced to ash, and entire nations crumbling beneath the weight of the Kralian Empire. The peace that had been promised was nothing but a lie, a peace built on the backs of the innocent. He saw human soldiers fighting alongside Kralian warriors, but the cost was staggering. Millions died, entire cultures erased. "Is this the price of peace?" Eli whispered, his voice barely audible as he took in the vision before him. The voice of Queen Zalira answered from behind him, cold and distant. "In war, there is always a cost. The question is whether the cost is worth it. In this future, humanity has chosen the path of submission. It is a path that offers survival, but at the expense of everything you hold dear. Your people will become pawns in a galactic game of power. Is that what you truly desire for them?" The vision flickered, and Eli was thrust into another scene. This time it was a different future. Earth was not burning. Instead, it was thriving, an advanced, peaceful society working together with other civilizations across the galaxy. Humans were no longer the pawns, but partners in the vast web of intergalactic diplomacy. But as the vision progressed, Eli saw the cracks beneath the surface. The peace was fragile, built on the understanding that humanity had made compromises. The government had become authoritarian, ruling with an iron fist to maintain control. The people were no longer free. They were controlled by the very peace that had once seemed like a dream. Families lived in constant surveillance, their every move monitored. The promise of prosperity had come at the cost of individual freedom. The images shifted again, showing children being indoctrinated into the new order, their smiles replaced by blank expressions as they learned to follow the rules, never questioning the system. Eli felt a pang of guilt and despair as he watched these scenes. Was this the price of peace? Was this the kind of future humanity would have if it joined the Kralians? Eli's heart felt heavy in his chest. He knew what was happening. Queen Zalira was showing him two possible futures, both of which were filled with suffering, loss, and compromise. No matter what choice he made, humanity would lose something vital. The price of peace was high, and the vision of a perfect future seemed more like a nightmare. He could feel his resolve starting to crack. What was the right choice? How could he choose between two futures, both of which were flawed? How could he condemn his people to one future or the other? But then something shifted within him, a memory. A moment from his own past, the day he had left Earth to represent humanity in the face of the galaxy's most powerful empire. He remembered the hope he had felt then, the belief that humanity could be something more. He had chosen to come here to face the Kralians, not just to save his people from destruction, but to show them that humanity was worth fighting for. Queen Zalira's voice echoed in his mind, challenging him. "What will you choose, Eli Granger? Will you let your people live in the shadow of power? Will you trade your soul for the promise of survival? Or will you choose the path of true peace, the path that may cost everything, but that leaves humanity free?" The words struck him with the force of a physical blow. The answer had been there all along. It wasn't about choosing the lesser of two evils. It was about rejecting the idea that humanity had to live in a galaxy where peace could only be bought with blood. It was about the belief that true peace was not just the absence of war, but the presence of freedom, of dignity, and of choice. "I choose the path of freedom," Eli said, his voice strong and clear. "I choose a future where humanity can make its own choices, where peace is not bought at the cost of others. I choose a future where we stand on our own, not as pawns in a galactic game, but as partners in a galaxy that values freedom above all else. The vision shattered and the room returned to its quiet, oppressive silence. For a moment, Eli felt as though he had failed. Had his choice been enough? Would Queen Zalira listen to him? But then, a faint glimmer of light appeared before him. Queen Zalira stepped forward, her face unreadable, her eyes reflecting the faintest hint of something Eli had not seen before. It was not approval, not exactly, but it was something else. Perhaps, just perhaps, it was understanding. "You have chosen the path of the unknown, Eli Granger," she said, her voice softer than before. "It is a path fraught with danger and uncertainty, but it is also the path of hope. You have proven that humanity is capable of making difficult choices, of standing for what is right, even when it is hard." Eli felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The trial was over, and he had made his choice. Whether the galaxy accepted it or not, he had chosen the future that he believed in, a future where humanity was not defined by the mistakes of the past, but by the potential for something greater. He looked at Queen Zalira one last time, knowing that the future of humanity would never be the same again. Whatever happened next, he was ready to face it. For the first time in his life, Eli felt that his heart was at peace. The room was silent, the weight of Eli's decision hanging in the air like a thick fog. He could feel Queen Zalira's gaze upon him, but he didn't flinch. His heart was pounding, but his resolve had never been clearer. He had chosen the path of freedom, the path that could either save humanity or lead them into a new kind of darkness. The future was uncertain, but he knew that no matter what, it was the right choice. Queen Zalira's expression remained unreadable for a long moment. Her silver eyes glimmered as though searching deep into his soul. Eli stood tall, trying to keep his emotions in check. The trials had been grueling, pushing him to the limits of his strength, intellect, and heart. And now this final choice would determine not just his fate, but the fate of every human being on Earth. At last, Queen Zalira spoke, her voice steady, yet there was a hint of something more in it now. "You have chosen the path of freedom, a path that leads into the unknown. The Kralians do not easily accept defiance. Your decision will have consequences both for you and for your world." Eli took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I know," he said, his voice firm, "but it's a path I will walk. Humanity will not be controlled by anyone, not by you, not by any empire. We will build our future on our terms." The queen regarded him for a moment longer before speaking again. "You may have chosen freedom, but freedom is never free. It comes with sacrifice. Your people will face challenges, enemies, and hardships. The Kralians will not simply allow your defiance to go unpunished." Eli nodded. He understood the risk, but he also understood that true peace, the kind that came from unity and respect, was worth any sacrifice. He had seen the future the Kralians would offer, peace built on oppression on the backs of the weak. He could not allow that to be humanity's destiny. "We'll face whatever comes," Eli said, his voice steady. "If it means standing alone, then so be it. We'll find allies, build bridges, and make sure that peace comes not through force, but through understanding." Queen Zalira studied him carefully, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she nodded. "Very well, Eli Granger. You have passed the final trial. It was not just a test of your mind or your strength. It was a test of your spirit, your will to stand for what is right, no matter the cost. And you have proven that humanity has the courage to walk its own path." Eli felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was over. The trials were finished, and yet the journey was far from over. His decision had set in motion a series of events that would change the course of history. He had made enemies today, powerful enemies. But he had also made an ally, though he wasn't sure how deep that alliance went. Queen Zalira turned her back to him, looking out over the vast expanse of space. "You will return to your world, Eli Granger. You will return with the knowledge that humanity's future is in your hands. You have earned your place in the galaxy, though the cost of that place remains to be seen. Eli watched her for a moment, then followed her gaze. Outside the ship, Earth glimmered in the distance, a pale blue dot in the endless black of space. The planet he had fought for, the planet that held everything he loved. His mission had started as a diplomatic negotiation, but now it had become so much more. "I understand," Eli said, "but I'll do everything I can to make sure that future is a good one. Humanity will stand tall, not as conquerors but as builders. We'll make our own way in the universe without relying on the crutches of empire." Queen Zalira's eyes flicked toward him, and for a brief moment there was something almost human in her expression. "You are stubborn, Eli Granger," she said softly, "and I respect that. But be warned, the galaxy is not kind to those who defy the established order. Many will try to crush your spirit to destroy your world. But there is one thing you must understand. Your people, your species, have something the Kralians lack. They have heart. They have the ability to change, to adapt, and to survive when all others fail." Eli nodded, knowing that this was more than just a compliment. It was a recognition of humanity's potential, a recognition that would either drive the galaxy toward a brighter future or plunge it further into darkness. The Queen had shown him the power of the Kralians, but she had also shown him their limitations. They may have strength, but they lacked the one thing that truly mattered, the capacity for change, for growth, and for hope. "And that," Queen Zalira continued, her voice low, "is why I'm giving you this." She turned toward him, holding out a small, crystalline object in her hand. It was smooth and translucent, glowing with a soft inner light. "This is a key to the Kralian archives. It holds knowledge, knowledge that could help you and your people navigate the challenges ahead, but use it wisely. Power comes with its own burdens." Eli reached out, taking the crystal from her hand. It was lighter than he expected, but the weight of its significance was far greater. He didn't fully understand what the archives held, but he knew it would be important. Knowledge was power, but it could also be a responsibility that he now carried on his shoulders. "I'll make sure it's used for good," Eli promised. Queen Zalira stepped back, her regal demeanor returning. "We shall see, but for now you are free to go. The Kralians will watch your world closely. You have earned our respect, but remember, respect is not the same as alliance. The future of humanity will depend on how you handle the choices ahead." Eli felt a chill run down his spine. The Kralians might respect him, but that didn't mean they would offer their support. They were watching, waiting for humanity's next move, but he couldn't worry about that now. He had to return to Earth, to his people, and do everything he could to make sure they understood the importance of this moment. The ship's doors opened, and Eli stepped forward, the weight of the crystal heavy in his hand. The vast expanse of space lay before him, the stars twinkling in the distance. Earth was still a long way off, but it felt closer now, as if it were within reach. He had passed the trials, but the real work was just beginning. As the Kralian ship began its descent toward Earth, Eli looked out at the horizon of the galaxy, knowing that the future was uncertain. The galaxy was full of dangers, but it was also full of possibilities. Humanity had a place in that future if they could fight for it, if they could rise above the challenges that awaited them. He would lead them. He had to, for Earth, for humanity, for the future. And with that thought, Eli Granger stepped forward, knowing that the path ahead would be difficult, but that it was a path worth walking.